Hello and welcome to the wolfSSL live webinar, Reason to Migrate from OpenSSL to wolfSSL, presented by wolfSSL Senior Software Developer, Anthony. My name is Shizuka and I will be moderating the webinar. All attendees will be in listen-only mode. If you have questions, please use the Q&A box. We will host a Q&A session following the presentation. The webinar will also be recorded and made available on our YouTube channel shortly after the presentation. I invite you to follow us on Twitter at wolfSSL, as well as our other socials. Also, feel free to email us if you have any additional questions. And now I would like to give a brief company overview before we move to the technical presentation. Today, wolfSSL secures over 2 billion connections. We have more than 1,000 OEM customers and a dozen of resellers. wolfSSL is made up of over 50 dedicated employees, most of which are engineers. This progress is, of course, supported by a strong partners network that we are proud of. Since the beginning, our engineering team has developed several embedded security products, including WolfCrypt with DO178 support, HIPS certification, and a HIPS ready offering, MQTT up to the V5 specification, SSH-v2, TPM 2.0, a secure bootloader known as a Wolf Boot, as well as Java wrappers and a JSSE support and commercial support for Curl. All of these offerings are accompanied by through maintenance and support plans up to the 24/7 level. We also offer full service consulting. And now I would like to turn it over to Anthony to talk about reason to migrate from OpenSSL to wolfSSL.
Okay, I guess it's time to get started on this webinar. Hello, my name is Anthony Hugh. I'm a senior software developer with wolfSSL. And this webinar, we're going to talk about reasons to migrate from OpenSSL to wolfSSL. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this. So for the agenda today, we are going to talk about migrating from OpenSSL to wolfSSL. And we're going to give some business reasons as well as some technical reasons. And I think you'll probably be interested in both, but note that this is going to get recorded. So if you're mainly interested in the technical reasons, you can skip ahead to those. And if you're mainly interested in business reasons and you're watching the recording, you can just stop at the technical reasons. All right. So the biggest reason to switch to wolfSSL is obviously FIPS 140-3. With OpenSSL, they used to have their engine, and they used to have an engine called the OpenSSL FIPS canister. So what's the FIPS canister? It was an engine, and it had the FIPS approved implementations. Well, in the newer versions, that FIPS canister is now no longer, I believe it's sunsetted now and cannot be used for FIPS. And especially not for FIPS 140-3. For 140-3, they have the new OpenSSL versions use something called providers. And these providers, none of them are FIPS validated yet. When will they be FIPS validated? Nobody really knows. We can guarantee one thing. wolfSSL will be FIPS 140-3 certified far before OpenSSL's FIPS provider. So, if you're looking for FIPS validation and FIPS certification, we're going to be imminently getting our certification. So that's a great reason to move to wolfSSL. So another reason to move to wolfSSL is because of our professional support. We have professional tiered support with service level agreements that define our initial response times. Even though we are obligated to respond within 3 business days for basic level support, we almost always get an initial response within hours. If the issue is complicated enough, we'll even get on the phone with you. How does that compare to OpenSSL? I don't know. Have you ever tried to call OpenSSL? I don't even know what the phone number is. So, I mean, I've been on several customer calls personally, and I can tell you that most of the time, we get it resolved during that call. And if it's not resolved during that call, it's resolved pretty darn soon. Yeah, so that's another great reason to, move to wolfSSL. You have the possibility of quick support, and you even have the possibility of in-person on-phone support. We do consulting services. This is our wolfSSL consulting page where we define the kinds of consulting jobs that we'll do. There's Kickstarts, where we basically help you port to your platform of choice. We do, feature editions. If you're looking, for example, for TLS extensions or new special algorithms, we do wolfSSL training courses that are specialized. In fact, we've recorded on our YouTube channel training courses that you can go and look at for free. Now, if you need something a bit more specialized or something a bit more tailored to your particular situation, we're totally willing to do training courses for you. We'll port wolfSSL to new hardware and new operating systems. Quite often the question is asked, is my hardware supported? And, always the answer is yes, because we will help you port over to that hardware and that operating system. In terms of optimizations, the question is, what are your trade-offs? Are you looking for smaller space usage, smaller RAM usage, faster algorithms? We'll help you optimize towards the thing that you are focused on. We have a consulting thing called a FIP start, which is, what you do when you first start out on your FIPS journey. It can be very daunting because, you as a developer might not understand everything. So what we're willing to do is help you kind of take you through the steps, make sure that you have all the information that you need at that particular moment in your FIPS journey. We'll help you do security architecture design, right? We'll make sure that you look that you're doing the right things, that you're considering the right, that you're using the right algorithms, that you're using the right security level and parameter sets, stuff like that. We'll do custom builds for you. We'll make sure that if you have to support old things, that you'll still be able to support old algorithms. If you need to maximize your performance, we'll get that done for you. And when we do this, we'll make sure that all of it is that you have full possession of all the source code and configurations that you need to continue on your development. We'll do rip and replace of competitive software. So for a perfect example is if you're using OpenSSL, we can help you replace OpenSSL using our compatibility layer, using our wolfSSL engine. So we have an OpenSSL engine that talks to wolfSSL. So you would end up using wolfSSL's implementations underneath OpenSSL, and thereby be able to accelerate your FIPS journey. So it's a great little way to get to FIPS. Hold on now. Let's get back here. And so now, oops, gotten ahead of ourselves. So we were on this slide. So another reason is that wolfSSL is an actual business entity. We're actually called wolfSSL Incorporated. So we are an actual corporation. If you need NDAs or written SOWs or contracts or any kind of commercial licensing options, we can help you. If you want billing, we invoice, So if your lawyers or your accountants have certain needs with regards to doing business with certain entities, we can meet all of those obligations, no problem. With OpenSSL, for example, I don't necessarily know that they're going to send you an invoice. Will they give you an SOW for anything? I don't think so. And so those were the main business reasons that you would want to use wolfSSL. So now let's get into the technical reasons as to why you might want to get into moving from OpenSSL to wolfSSL. One of the big elephants in the room now these days is that OpenSSL is now no longer providing updates for anything before the 3.x branch of releases. So if you're using OpenSSL 1.0.2 or OpenSSL 1.1.0 or OpenSSL 1.1.1, you're not going to get any more updates. Even if vulnerabilities are discovered, no more public updates are going to these branches, and no backports as well. So what does that mean? It means if you want to stay secure and use OpenSSL in a secure way and get secure updates, you need to move to the 3.x branch. Well, what does that really mean? It means you have to now go into the migration guide and kind of, go through what they say you need to do to migrate from one of the earlier branches to the 3.x branch. And one of the headaches there is the API deprecation. There is a massive, massive low-level API deprecation that is going on at the 3.x branch level. Let's have a quick look. So here are the, hold on, I think I went too high. Providers, deprecation of low-level functions. If we look here, if you look at all of these links go to APIs that access low-level structures and data types. These APIs are getting deprecated. You're no longer going to be able to use these APIs. So now one thing you're really going to have, the one thing you're going to have to do is kind of go in and make a list of these APIs and make sure that either you don't use any of them, or that if you do, you have a strategy to move over and use something else, some other given API that they might suggest, or have your own custom solution maybe. Now they're deprecated. That doesn't mean they're quite disappeared yet. They're not gone or removed yet, but basically the OpenSSL people are telling you, hey, don't use these APIs because they're going away soon. And so you need to figure out what your strategy is going to be for these APIs. Yeah. So, one of the solutions to this is, since you're doing a migration anyways, why not do the easier migration? Instead of figuring out, hey, am I using this API? Hey, if I am using this API, what am I going to do now? your solution should be to just use wolfSSL's OpenSSL compatibility layer. And what that is a bunch of headers and configurations in wolfSSL that allow you to use wolfSSL without modifying any of your calls to OpenSSL. And you just put wolfSSL underneath your application code. And through the magic of macros and various configuration options, you won't have to modify your code. You'll only have to modify your configuration and maybe some build options, such as where to find libraries and which libraries to link against. And suddenly your code will work again without any worry of migration. Now, of course, our OpenSSL compatibility layer does not have 100% coverage of the OpenSSL APIs. But, it's pretty darn close. If you look at our OSP, which stands for open source, I forgot what the P stands for, but open source projects repo, sorry. You can see where we use the OpenSSL compatibility layer to do integrations with a bunch of open source libraries that originally were expecting OpenSSL. When we turned on our compatibility layer, we had to make very, very, very few changes to any of those libraries, or sorry, any of those projects for them to be able to use wolfSSL. Now, again, like I just said, it doesn't have 100% coverage, but it's pretty darn close. And if we're missing something, if you give us an email, suddenly it will appear. We'll have a pull request, and suddenly you're going to have that coverage, and everything will work once again. So I think instead of doing the 3.x migration with all those deprecated APIs, just use our OpenSSL compatibility layer and give us a shout. We've got excellent support, even pre-sale support. We provide free pre-sale support. So another problem that you're going to have is that you've got, if you're worried about memory consumption, and if you're running on something like a Raspberry Pi, or if hardware costs are an issue for you, you're probably using constrained devices. And so if that's the case, you're probably going to be worried about your memory consumption, because if you're worried about cost, you probably cut down on your memory usage so that you can buy less memory. And so what's going on here now is that when you move to the 3.x branch, you're going to have issues. And what are we talking about? We're talking about memory consumption. It uses a lot of memory. When you're using the 3.x branch, what happens is all the implementations are in they're in the provider. So you've got all this infrastructure for being able to load all these dynamic libraries. And, I think the flexibility is really interesting, but what ends up happening is a lot of data structures, a lot of, not necessarily needless, but a lot of infrastructure ends up taking a lot of memory. And that's going to take up some space. On the other hand, wolfSSL is extremely memory efficient, and it can be very, very fast at the cost of memory. So you need to be able to configure wolfSSL properly for them to make sure that you're consuming the least amount of memory, if that is indeed your priority. But it's possible to fine-tune performance for both memory as well as speed. So another really interesting point is DTLS 1.3. When will OpenSSL support DTLS 1.3? I don't know. I don't I haven't heard anything in terms of their plans for support or a roadmap for GTLS 1.3. In fact, as far as I can tell, wolfSSL is the first and only library that supports DTLS 1.3. And if you know differently, please, during the Q&A session, please do let me know about other libraries and other implementations that are supporting GTLS 1.3. We are in desperate need of interop testing. As far as we know, we're the only ones, so we can't do any interop testing, which is making us somewhat nervous because we always like to say we're the best tested security library out there, and it's hard to claim that when there's no one to test against. So yeah, so if you want to move to GTLS 1.3, as of yet we're the only game in town. So if you're using OpenSSL, come on over and try out our DTLS 1.3 implementation. Quick support has been really interesting. There's been a lot of push to do quick. And OpenSSL has I don't want to say alienate, but there's been some debate as to their approach to supporting quick. And so I think our approach has been really good. wolfSSL has solicited community input, looked around at other supporting libraries, and I think we're supporting quick the right way, the way the community wants us to do it, and the way that is good for the community at large. What I've been hearing from the community about how OpenSSL is trying to talk about quick and frame it is that it's doing it in its own way, and it's taking its own path. And admittedly, what I heard was fairly long ago, maybe about a half a year ago, but I haven't heard anything else since then. So I don't really know what's going on this front. So, when will OpenSSL support quick? We don't really know. But what I do know is that, wolfSSL does support quick. We already have like a configure time -- enable quick flag. So if you're curious about that, please come on over and try it out. Yeah, and let us know what you think. And again, like I said earlier, we provide free support. So the quick implementation is fairly new. So if you find you're having problems, or if you find that we've done some weird API quirk, or we're missing an API that you would have expected, please do let us know at support@wolfSSL.com, because we would totally be interested in your feedback. Now let's talk about hardware modules. So does OpenSSL have support for hardware modules? The short answer is no, they don't. Like if we're talking about HSMs or special security modules or TPMs, there's no support for any of that. The longer answer is kind of. So what you can do is you can find engines that support PKCS11, and so from there you can use the engine to use the implementations of algorithms via that engine. And the way that works is it'll talk PKCS11 to the HSM, and thereby overriding the software implementations in OpenSSL via the engine. But really, how does that work from from an everyday usage perspective, or from a developer perspective? Sorry. Let's say you find a problem or an issue or whatever, and you want to file a ticket, or file a bug with, well, who do you file the bug with? Do you file it with OpenSSL? Do you file it with the engine author? Let's say you file it with OpenSSL first. Well, they're going to be wondering, Well, oh, you're using an engine. Is the problem in the engine implementation? And so you go and talk to the engine implementation people, and they're like, well, is the problem with your HSM? And then now you got to figure out where the actual problem is. With wolfSSL, when you're using us, there is no other engine provider. There is nobody else that you need to talk to. We write the interface to PKCS11 devices. We write the interface to all our hardware devices, and we support hundreds of them. And when you come to us with a problem, no matter whether it's hardware backed or not, or, it doesn't matter. If the bug is in our code, we'll figure out where that bug is and we'll fix it. We'll get rid of it for you. You just have one place to go to, one support forum to talk to, and then we can get that out of our system and get it fixed up into a pull request on GitHub, where you can pull it down, try it out, test it on your system to make sure it works, and then we're going to get that right into our code as soon as possible. Notwithstanding our own testing and our own review process. But yeah, it's not third party. Just tell us which part you use, and we'll figure out how to get you supported properly. All right. There's no one else you need to go to. So the cool thing about wolfSSL is that we have a full suite of other security and protocol applications that go hand in hand with wolfSSL library. So we're talking things like, curl. Believe it or not, curl, the maintainer of curl is actually an employee of wolfSSL company. And so we are the ones that provide all the business end around curl. So if you need support for curl, you would actually use the wolfSSL support forums, technical support window for getting support for curl. We have wolfSSH, which is an SSH 2.0 protocol implementation. We have wolfboot, which is a bootloader, and it's great. It uses wolfSSL for some of the cryptographic implementations it uses. Actually, all the cryptographic implementations it uses. You can use wolfboot. Wolfboot, uses wolfSSL. We have wolfMQTT, which is an MQTT library implementation, and that just goes on top of wolfSSL for being able to do any kind of cryptography, as well as TLS 1.2 and 1.3 support, as well as DTLS 1.2 and 1.3. We've got wolfSentry, which again goes on top of OpenSSL. And wolfSentry is an IDPS system. It's great for the embedded use case. There aren't many IDPS solutions on embedded use cases, and as far as we know, wolfSentry is the only one. Yeah. So this whole suite of applications are also supported, and so this goes back to the kind of the same thing that we were talking about with hardware modules. There's no other third party that you're going to need to go to. If you are using an open source, let's say you had a problem with OpenSSH and you were using OpenSSL underneath it. Well, if you were to file a ticket, both parties are going to be wondering, wolfSSL is going to, or not wolfSSL, OpenSSL might be wondering, is it OpenSSH that has the problem? If OpenSSH is going to be wondering if it's a problem with OpenSSL. Well, if you're using wolfSSL and wolfSSH, it doesn't matter. We're all the same. We're all in one team. We're all together, working together, and we're not going to question, well, is it you? Is it you? We're not pointing fingers. We're on the same team, working together to help you get your solution as soon as possible. this is a really interesting problem that a lot of people are probably going to be encountering eventually. CVEs, and CVEs are basically short for vulnerabilities. So we're looking at some of these CVEs here that you can go look up online. And the really interesting part is about these CVEs is that they're not in the algorithm implementations. They're in the certificate handling, verification, and generation area. The reason why that makes them interesting is because since these vulnerabilities lie in the 1.x.x in the 1.x.x release branches, and no updates are going out for these release branches, these CVEs are not going to be fixed. These vulnerabilities will remain as a policy of the OpenSSL organization in the code base. And here's the problem. No engine can fix this because this is in how certificates are handled. The engines only have algorithm implementations. They don't have certificate handling logic. And so, like, not even using Wolf Engine can help you here. So what is the solution? If you want to avoid these CVEs, you can just use our OpenSSL compatibility layer. And if you find that these CVEs are still, like, these vulnerabilities are even present in wolfSSL, we'll fix them. They're not, we've checked. But if you use our OpenSSL compatibility layer and you find that we have a vulnerability or a problem or a bug, we will fix it. We're not going to leave a bug that anyone finds in our source code still available for exploitation. So I think, and we're going to maintain that. As long as you have support with us, we will maintain and clean up any bugs or vulnerabilities we have in our code, no matter your use case. So this is our final slide, and this is near and dear to my heart. As you might know, I'm wolfSSL's post-quantum specialist, and I've been working, oh gosh, a good 7 years in the industry, bringing post-quantum algorithms into TLS, and OpenSSL. I know that they are aware of the impending, coming of cryptographically relevant quantum computers. But apparently, I'm not exactly sure what their strategy is. And I know they're aware of it because I've seen members of their team at conferences and at events where the post-quantum talk is widely and heavily talked about. Now, I don't want to, it feels like they're ignoring post-quantum, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's because the standards haven't come out yet, and so maybe they feel it's too early. But nobody that I talk to thinks that post-quantum algorithms aren't going to be needed. And I think the sooner you get them supported, the more eyeballs you have on this stuff, the better. So wolfSSL has already has support for post-quantum algorithms in TLS 1.2, TLS 1.3, as well as DTLS 1.3. We brought in post-quantum algorithms into the wolfSSH product, as well as the wolfMQTT product. Our most exciting addition, which I didn't even get to document here, is that we now have LMS support in wolfboot. So now you can have an LMS signed firmware image and get it verified by wolfboot on your the wolfboot bootloader on your bare metal system. It's very, very, very compelling. So our post-quantum work up till now has been integrations with libOQS for, basically large machines. PQM4, which is like an open source post-quantum implementation library for microcontrollers, and libLMS, which is the reference implementation for LMS and HSS. Obviously, we are working on our own implementations, and we will have our own implementations available, when the timing's right and when it's appropriate. Obviously, our own implementations will be optimized for, all hardware levels and all platforms and all operating systems. So, watch out for news there. But most importantly, register your interest with us. Give us a shout. Let us know that you're interested in these algorithms. Quite often, how much we prioritize them is obviously dependent on how much customer interest we have. So if we see a lot of customer interest, then we're going to give it a higher priority. So if you're interested, please do let us know. And as I said, in all these points that I've made, I think the word support has come up in each slide. And you have to understand, for wolfSSL, our main selling point is support. We are here to support your cryptographic and protocol needs. So if you have any questions, or if you want us to prioritize things, you need to let us know. So email us at facts@wolfSSL.com to let us know where your priorities lie. Thank you very much. We'll be taking questions now. Hello, this is Anthony Hugh. I'm here right now, and I'm ready to take your questions.
I do have one question. OpenSSL deprecated their support for low-level APIs. When will you?
That's a great question. Shizuka, you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. So the short answer is never. There is a bit of a longer answer though. We will never deprecate anything that paying customers still use. So if we have an API, and even if we don't have an API, we'll add it for you. And as long as you have a support contract with us, we will never we will never deprecate it. This goes for any kind of algorithms or any kind of API, whether they're OpenSSL compatibility layer or not. If you need it, it will still be there for you.
I do have another question. Do you have any interface for Delphi?
I'm actually not familiar with what Delphi is. Jesus, can you maybe come off the mute and let us know what you mean by Delphi? Oh, Pascal. Yeah, no, I don't believe we have a wrapper for the Pascal language. I'm sorry, no.
I do have another question. Is there any runtime license cost associated with using wolfSSL in commercial products?
Hello. So that's an interesting question. Runtime license cost. No, I believe all of our licensing costs are one time only. And so you can when you license wolfSSL, you pay a one-time licensing fee, and that is good for eternity. Now, I might be wrong. You might need to. So we also do have a subscription model. So there are different models depending on what your specific needs are. So I'm not really the one to answer that question, but the best idea is to email fax@wolfSSL.com so that we can get a licensing package that meets your specific needs.
Another question, is there any software entropy source implemented/supported by wolfSSL?
In fact, there is. We have a software entropy source that is currently in development. And this is from Indira Shodhari. So if you could just email fax@wolfSSL.com, letting us know that you're interested in such a thing like a software entropy source, we would greatly appreciate that if you could just email that to us, and we'll get the right people to you with the right answers.
Another question, if I have a Pascal code calling OpenSSL EVP underscore MSC underscore fetch and so on, can you help to integrate wolfSSL?
Yeah, if you already have Pascal code for it and it's yeah, so the way our OpenSSL compatibility layer works is it would transform our function names, sorry, your calls into I think that might not work because it uses macros to transform the function names into our function names. That said, what we can do is we can put the engine or the provider underneath wolfSSL, and then so you would be still calling into OpenSSL, but you would be using wolfSSL's implementations. Does that answer your question? I think it does. Please ask a follow-up question if that didn't answer the question.
And I do have another question. Would the HEPS support continue across each wolfSSL version, unlike we observe with OpenSSL, where old versions don't have the HEPS support? More recently, OpenSSL 1.1.1 series. Secondly, it is always necessary to upgrade to the newer version of the wolfSSL. Won't the support be available for the earlier version used based of whatever constraints we don't want to upgrade, like limited hardware resources slash computing capability, etc.
That's a great question. And the answer is you don't need to worry about that sort of thing. So when it comes to FIPS, whenever we have a new release, if you are a FIPS licensee, we give you the newest release automatically. You will receive it as we release them. Secondly, if you don't want to use the new release, that's fine as well. Your support still lasts. We will still support you on the version that you choose to use. If you choose not to upgrade, we will still support you on the version that you have. So basically, it's the best of both worlds. You get free upgrades to our FIPS software, and you will still remain certified even with that the free upgrade. But if you choose not to, you are still supported and you are still certified with the version that you choose to use.
I do have another question. How does license work? If I have 100 clients and I want to install my app that include wolfSSL DLL example, how much it costs?
So the licensing is not on a per seat basis. What you're asking for is how much is it per seat, or how much is it for 100 seats? And we don't license it that way. We license based on, how big your company is, your use case, and like we need to get to know your situation in particular. We usually base it on product line. So it's a one-time fee on the product line or the SKU. And I am not, and quite often that is not to the advantage of the customer. Quite often they have, you might have, for example, a small run of products. And so it doesn't make sense to kind of have a one size fit all licensing model. And so again, my answer to you is to email us at licensing@wolfSSL.com or fax@wolfSSL.com so that we can get you in touch with one of our business directors. They'll have like a couple questions, and after a half-hour conversation, we'll be able to draw up a good custom licensing agreement for you that is favorable to both you and your use case and your situation.
And I do have another question. How one can migrate from OpenSSL to wolfSSL on an existing implementation? Do we have to fully replace the OpenSSL codes with wolfSSL APIs? Would there be an abstract layer or library that exists to support this migration?
That's a great question. And the answer is, for you, it should be seamless. Your code will not change. What might change is, some of the boilerplate header files. You'll be when you're using OpenSSL, you point to header files in OpenSSL's include directory. You might have to change some of the names or the paths to those header files. So some of your build configuration might change. But once you point to the right wolfSSL header files, those header files contain macros, which will remap your function names in your source file that will then map to wolfSSL function names. And then thus you will have you will be then calling into our compatibility layer. So basically in your source code, no changes are required. That said, I spoke earlier during the presentation about, it's our compatibility layer isn't 100% complete, but it's pretty close. And if you have functions that we don't, if you're calling functions that we haven't quite implemented yet, you just pop an email to us and, suddenly in a week or two, there it is. It'll be right there in our master branch. So it's not as, so it's pretty simple.
I do have another question. Can I pay for the support after I get the license?
Yes. Yes, you can decline support. And if you're just doing normal wolfSSL, you can decline support. And if you find afterwards you need it, we have different tiers. So maybe you might want to start out with what we call our basic support. And I gave you the outline on the slide of what a basic support meant. And there's a certain limited number of support requests that you can make. But if you're finding, you're going over that, maybe I think we limit it to 3, and you might find, oh my gosh, we need like 5 or 6. Well, then you can move up to the standard level support. And if you're finding that's still not enough, you can then later move up to, the premium support level. And we can, custom tailor our support to your needs. Maybe you don't need so much of the support, online support, but you need something closer to like consulting. In which case, yeah, we're totally happy to turn it into a consulting agreement. Or maybe you want a training agreement. In which case, again, we're perfectly happy to turn it into a training contract. So we're very, very, very flexible. Again, the license just is the license gives you the right to use it in your commercial product, as opposed to using it as a GPL product. In the GPL product, you are bound to give away your source code as well. In the commercial, using our wolfSSL as a commercial product, you are no longer bound to doing that.
I do have another question. I have to set a HIPS enable in Windows or it belong only to wolfSSL. I mean, I don't need to change nothing in the OS.
That's correct. Nothing changes in the operating system.
Okay.
That said, you do need to tell us if you license our FIPS product from us, you do need to tell us about your operating environment, such as your operating system and your hardware. And then we would go and get an operating environment certificate. We would get that operating environment added to our certificate, and nothing in your OS needs to change after that. That said, the FIPS licensing is different from our normal commercial licensing, and I'm not going to go into that in here and now, but it is different.
So Anthony, you already answered the how the HIPS module works, like OpenSSL headbuster.
A head buster. I don't know what a head buster is, but I will say that it is very the FIPS module is very similar to the is very similar to normal wolfSSL. What you can do is, if you're interested in FIPS, which you seem to be because your questions seem to be very FIPS centric, what it's not difficult. No. So I can see that you're asking, is it very difficult? And if you're looking to understand how difficult our FIPS is, we do release a GPL2 version of our FIPS code, and you can get that in our website's download site. Our website, wolfSSL.com, has a downloads area, and there you can get the FIPS v2, sorry, the FIPS, not v2, the FIPS ready download, which is a GPL version of our FIPS release. And you can kind of experiment and play with that and see how difficult you feel it is to get up and running. And it's basically the same thing. Instead, in a normal FIPS ready release, you just have to type in you have to run a script to generate a what is it called? To generate a hash and then do a rebuild, and that's about it. It's about all that. That's about as difficult as it gets. So it's fairly simple.
I do have another question. Assuming that I publish code under BSD2 closed license and I want to integrate wolfSSL GPL licensed code, what conflicts exist here?
Ooh, you're asking a very specific licensing question. Now, from what I understand, I am not a licensing expert. So from what I understand, BSD2 is very, very, what is the word? Lenient. It's very permissive as to what you do. And the GPL license is a little bit less lenient. It's very lenient as to what you do with it, but but the GPL states that you too must also release your source code. BSD2 does not have that requirement, if I'm not mistaken. I would suggest that you go back and find legal guidance, legally binding guidance that is like a lawyer to talk about that with. Any guidance I give you, you can come back and say, yes, but Anthony from wolfSSL said, because what I tell you is not the legal advice of a lawyer. But from what I understand, GPL2, you're bound to certain conditions by GPL2, which are more strict than BSD2, and you should probably be following what GPL says. I'm sorry if my answer was less than satisfactory, but like I said, I am not a lawyer. I cannot be giving you legal advice.
I do have another question. Will the use of wolfSSL HIPS 140-3 validated module in our embedded device allow us to claim HIPS 140-3 validation for the complete device? If not, what is the benefit of using wolfSSL HIPS module?
Yes. When you will be able to say that we are using a FIPS validated software. That said, you need to have a license from us, and you need to tell us your OE, and we need to get it tested under that OE, and we need to get it registered under that OE. All of that requires that you have an official binding license with us. You can, on the other hand, use our FIPS Ready to experiment, and you can check if your system works under our FIPS Ready code release on your embedded device. And once you do that, you can say, hey, I'm using code that has been FIPS validated. That said, if someone goes and checks on your FIPS validation status, you will not come out as being registered as FIPS validated. You will have, basically what ends up happening is, I think, if someone checks on your FIPS validated status, they have to go back to the lab that is using the software that validated the software that you use, and they will ask, is this particular, do you know about this particular company and this particular configuration? And if you don't have a license with us, then we can't say that we do know about you. So I'm giving you a very generalized answer. You asked several questions about FIPS. I don't think you should be asking them from me. I think the best idea for you, sir, is to email us and get in touch with one of our business directors so that you can get a professional FIPS answer. We often run FIPS webinars. This is not a FIPS webinar. So the fact that you're answering all these questions hints to me that you should either wait for a FIPS webinar, or you should wait to talk to, you should either wait for a FIPS webinar, our next FIPS webinar, or you should just email facts@wolfSSL.com, repeating all these answers, all these questions in your email. Will you commit to that, sir? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes.
Shishika, I think that's the end of the questions, unless there are any more.
I think that's all. Thank you. You
Excellent.
answer all the questions.
Yeah, it's surprising. Not many OpenSSL questions, but lots of FIPS questions.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Anthony, for hosting the informative webinar, and everyone for attending today. Please follow us on Twitter at wolfSSL and other socials to keep up with wolfSSL. And if you have questions, please email us to facts@wolfSSL.com. And thank you so much for attending, and see you guys next week.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.